Looking to build yourself a rolling workbench for your workshop? Well, we are going to build one today on That's How We Do It. I'm definitely not an artist, but I've attached a drawing of my plans as well as a wood material list. I've also included a complete list of materials in the description below, along with links to where you can get some of the materials I used today. This is the beginning of a series of videos for this bench, as I intend to include a built-in router table and eventually a dust collection system. In addition to the router table, I do plan on using my sliding miter saw on top of this table as well as my tabletop drill press. The space I have provided for my workbench is just over 72 inches long, so I'm making this 72 inches long by 36 inches deep and 36 inches tall. This will give me a good working surface with a lot of room underneath for storage. I purposely plan to offset the top working space over my 2x4s to allow for an overhang that would allow for a clamping space and an area to attach power strips or whatever else I may need. I did not offset the bottom shelf. I first cut all my material to length. This includes 4 4x4s, cut to 30 inches each, which I will use as the 4 corner posts of my bench. 4 2x4s, cut to 65 inches each. 6 2x4s, cut to 29 inches, and 2 2x4s, cut to 33 inches. I then make pocket holes into all the ends of the 2x4s using the Kreg R3 jig. I do have a video on how to use the Kreg R3 jig and will include it in the description below, as well as a link on where to purchase. It is a great way to make pocket holes to join 2 boards together. Check it out if you're interested. After making the pocket holes, I assemble the ends of the bench together using Kreg 2.5 inch long pocket screws. Kreg screws are required when using the Kreg pocket jig. Here I am using a block of wood to support the bottom while I screw in the 2x4 to the 4x4 post. This is creating the offset that I wanted to allow for the clamping. I do this for both sides of my bench. Here you can see the 2-inch difference that will allow for the overhang of my tabletop and allow for my clamping and the utility space underneath the top of the table. While down here, you can see it sits flush against the outside of the 4x4 since there's no need to have the overhang. I then attach the 2 ends together using my 65-inch long 2x4s. You can now see how nice these pocket holes work, keeping the construction process clean. I assemble the bottom of the workbench first, attaching both sides. I then turn the bench over and attach the sides for the top of the bench, remembering to bring my 2 long 2x4s in those 2 inches for the offset. I then measure out where I want to put in the bottom supports and screw them into place. Here I am using Kreg 2-inch long screws. I then turn over my bench and place my 3/4 inch plywood on top so I can measure and cut it to size for the bottom shelf. I use a drywall square to draw my cut lines across the plywood. I then use my Master Force track saw to cut my line. I use the same process to do my second cut along the longer edge. I use a scrap piece of 4x4 to mark the cutouts in all four corners so my shelf will fit around the 4x4 posts. I'm using my rigid jigsaw to cut out the corners. I really like my Rigid tools and their lifetime warranty. I'm not sponsored by Rigid, but I have included a link in the description below to the tools I am using. Since I will be storing things on the shelf, I want to ensure nothing will get caught on the screw heads. So I'm going to use a number 10 1¼ inch countersink to pre-drill my holes and sink my screw heads below my plywood. I will be using a number 12 1½ inch wood screws to fasten the shelf onto the bottom. I did forget when assembling my frame that I would need the extra room to get the shelf easily down into place. So I did have to remove one of my top 65-inch boards to allow me to get the shelf into position. I did leave it off while I finished securing the bottom shelf and then put it back on. Here you can see again how I arranged for the 2-inch overhang all the way around the top of the bench. I'm going to be attaching 4 4-inch swivel casters onto the bottom of my 4x4s. These are solid rubber wheels and have a 300 per pound caster weight capacity with a brake on each caster. I've used these casters before on my CNC table and I was impressed, so I used them again on this build. I'm using 3-inch long drywall screws and some washers to attach the casters. I know these aren't the recommended screws, but it is what I have lying around, and it worked perfectly on my CNC table, so I'm using them again here. I am using one of my rigid drills on this project. A link to both the casters and the drill will be included in the description below. When measuring for the top supports, I did keep in mind that my plan is to buy, cut out, and drop in a Bosch RA1181 router table into my workbench. Since the router table measures 18 inches wide, I make sure I place my supports 18 inches away from the end of the 2x4s on the end of the table, ensuring that there's an 18-inch gap between my 2x4s. When I go to drop in my router table, this will give me a large enough opening to fit, and something to secure it to. A link to the exact router table I will be using will be in the description. I don't want screws on the top of my bench, so I added pocket holes to the 2x4s, so I will have a way to secure my bench top down. I will be using Kreg 1½ inch long screws to attach the top so the screws don't go through my work surface. I then use the same process to measure and cut out the top surface for my workbench that I used on the bottom shelf. I will measure and make my lines with my drywall square and then use my track saw to make my cuts. I then clamp down my top and secure it to the bench using the pocket holes. You can see here the 2-inch overhang that I can use for clamping or where I can attach power strips or parts of a dust collection system. This will give me clamping ability all the way around the table as needed. And this completes the first part of this build. The next video will be me installing the router table. If you would like to see that video, there will be a link in the description below. There will also be links to other videos reference this table build. Thanks for joining us today. If you liked what you saw, please hit that like and subscribe button so we can get more content out to you. If you didn't like what you saw, smash that thumbs down button twice to really let us have it. Until next time, this is John for That's How We Do It, brought to you by Rustic American Woodwork.